Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar introducing My Netwealth. My name is Matt Conradi and I'm Head of Client Advisory here at NetWealth. Today what we're going to do is look through some of the key features and elements of the My Netwealth tools and how you can think about tracking your wealth across all of the different accounts that you have, the different sub-assets you have, and understanding the picture today. How you can think about planning for the future and looking at the powerful tools we have to think about choices you have around things like pensions, contributions or ISA contributions, how much you can afford to draw down in retirement, or whether you can afford those one-off expenses as well in the future. And then we'll think about the learning elements of My Netwealth and how you can educate yourself around key topics, whether those be market related, financial planning, or how you can achieve your goals. So I'm going to start with a 15-minute demonstration of the different tools, but there'll also be room for questions as well. So you'll see on your panel today, you have the ability to ask questions. Please do just pop those in as we go through, and we'll try to come to them at the end of today's session. If at the end of this you weren't able to ask a question, please do send through further questions to support@netwealth.com, and we'll be happy to answer those for you as well. So let's get started. I'm going to share my application screen and show you the My Netwealth landing page. This is the home page where you'll see your personal dashboard for all of the key elements that you can use within My Netwealth. So once you've registered, you'll have this page that you can log back into regularly. At the top, we see the total wealth that is tracked, the date that's as of, which is yesterday. Inside the boxes here, we have the wealth tracking box, as well as the wealth planning. Within the wealth planning, you can see the last date that you ran a projection on. So when you go back in, you can see that it's up to date at that point, and then you can decide if you want to rerun a projection. And we'll get to that in a moment. What else do we have on this homepage? Well, if you need any help or support, there's this little button up here that you can click on. Inside that, you'll get a link where you can either call the team, send us an email, or you can book in a video call as well. If you'd like help with how to use the tools, how to make the most of them, please do book in a time through there. On the rest of the dashboard, what we have is information in the Learn section. This is where you'll find great content across webinars, articles, and guides as well down the bottom here on wealth planning. Within the Learn area, we have access to those 3 different types of content to really help you with different topics that you might want to explore. We've got articles, webinars, and guides. The sort of quick updates on things that are going on, you'll find inside articles. We've tried to break those down into lots of different areas, and these will be regularly updated. So you might want to read about what Jared Lyons, the Chief Economic Strategist at NetWealth, has to say around the impact of banking bailouts, raising interest rates, and cheap money through time. That's going to be there, and you can quickly read that article through that. Or you might want to read more long-term things about the difference between active and passive investing, for example, when Louisa here, one of the client advisors, has given some of the key things to be thinking about when you're investing, when planning for your retirement. You can click through these guides and see different sections that are relevant to you. So maybe about setting your goals for retirement. You can expand the graphics and look at those in more detail. There'll be some of them will have interactive charts in them as well that you can use. So there's lots of information. This is perhaps for more long form content that you want. That can be shared as well to your emails, or you can break down the different parts of those guides through time. So that's the Learn section. Constantly we'll be updating with more information to look through. If we go back to the home page though, which you can do either from the navigation here, clicking go back, or the home at the top of the menu. So let's look at that top menu. We've got home, we've got tracking, we've got planning, the Learn section, and then the NetWealth services, where you can learn a little bit more about NetWealth, where you can find out about investing with NetWealth, because we do have a range of investment portfolios, or you can book in a call to speak with one of our qualified financial advisors as well. So that's the home page in the Learn section. Now let's think about wealth tracking. So one of the key features of My Netwealth is to help you understand the total picture of your accounts across all the different assets you have. I don't know if you're anything like me, but through time, you work at different places and pick up multiple pensions. You maybe did an ISA somewhere, you've got bank accounts, and it can all be all over the place, and it's hard to stay on track of what you've got in the first place and your overall wealth. How it breaks down by different account types, and what your overall asset allocation is, because when we think about planning and what's going to happen in the future, your asset allocation both today and where you want it to be is really important. And that's what the wealth tracking dashboard is helping you to see a total picture for. So what do we have here? We've got a summary of the total wealth. We've got the changes since inception in there as well. So that will track adjustments versus the value that you put in on day one, and it'll track it forward through time for you. We've got the breakdown by asset class exposure. And I'll show you later on, this drills down into the individual accounts. It drills down into funds and multi-asset funds to give a true picture of your asset allocation. So if you have one balanced fund that just says something like the Aviva balanced fund, this will actually look through that and give you a true asset allocation, which is really helpful to understand that picture. Then when we look into the account types, we just can see the breakdown between pensions, ISAs, taxable accounts. And if you've got JISAs and bare trusts in there, you can also see those broken down as well. The chart gives you a look through the value through time. So when you first build out your dashboard, there's going to be no data here, but as you go through time, it's going to continue tracking and you're going to see those change in values for you to be able to look back on into the future. If you have some net wealth accounts invested with us, you would see them here. If not, and you're interested in it, you can click on the Invest with Net Wealth button, and then you can start to see your individual accounts that have been set up. So in this demonstration account, we've pre-filled some information. And I'm going to start by just showing you the breakdown here. Someone's put in their ISAs that they've got with the different providers. So with Interactive Investor, they've actually got 2 different ISA accounts that they've put in. They've got a pension with the LifeSite, which might be a workplace one. They've got a SIP with James Hay, that perhaps is some of their older pensions. And then they've got this Fidelity account, which they've called their company stock scheme. So let's look about how you might create one of those accounts, and then we'll dive into the detail of them as well. So when you come to the top here, you can click to track an account. And what you'll see is a little box pop up and talk about the 2 ways that you would be able to track accounts. Right now, we have the create a custom account available. This is where you can create a mirror of your investment accounts elsewhere, your pensions, your GIAs, your ISAs, and load up the different holdings you have, and then we'll track the value of those through time and then give you that asset allocation picture. A feature that we'll be releasing later in the year is to be able to link to external accounts. I know there were some questions in advance about that. It's something that we are putting in place as a connection where you will be able to pull back the data from your different providers. You'll give us the authority to do that, and then we'll bring back live positions for you going forwards. I think in the interim, though, let's look at the custom account, because you can still get a lot of value from creating a custom account and looking at the different parts. I'm going to add in one quickly now just to show you something that was asked as a question, which was about how you do cash accounts. So imagine I've got an NS&I cash savings amount, and it's sitting here, and I've got it in the income bond there. I can put that in, but you can put any name you like in there, any reference you want that's more relevant to you. That's going to be a taxable portfolio. It's not inside an ISA or a pension or so on. So it's a general investment account. I'm going to click confirm details, and it's going to create that new account for us to go and look at. So at the moment, it's just a shell. It's sitting there, and we can see we've got the National Savings and Investments. It's got the name I gave it, income bond, and then we are looking at the what we've got in terms of the holdings and so on, but we put nothing in yet. So we have to start in a custom account adding in those holdings ourselves. Now in this case, it's cash. I'm going to say that I've got 50,000 of cash there, and it's pick my currency. I'm going to track it as being in sterling, and then I click add holding. So we see we've got the price and the value, and I click add holding, and that cash would come through, and we can see that position there. Now, so I've added cash in here. It's 100% cash, and that isn't in the position there. But if I go back to my wealth tracking dashboard, which I can do up here from the breadcrumb menu, or by clicking go back, or just by clicking tracking at the top, but I'll click wealth tracking there. What's going to happen is my overall dashboard is going to be updated for that additional cash. So the amount in GIAs has gone up. We're going to see more cash in the asset allocation in a second as well when that pops up as well. So we've got a bigger cash weighting going forwards. And we see that appearing here now in my list of accounts. That's how you might add a cash account and how you'd add a new custom account. Let's look at diving into one of the existing accounts and looking at the details of that. So let's take, for example, this one here, my ISA at Interactive Investor. We can see that we've got equity, fixed income, some others, which will be alternatives, it would be things like infrastructure, perhaps hedge funds and so on. And then we've got cash and property as well. And that's built up from the individual holdings. So here we see the individual funds that have been added one by one, and including a multi-asset fund. And that's going to look through that multi-asset fund and give the correct breakdown for it. But let's think about, maybe I missed off a holding. I wanted to add in some more holdings in here. So let's think about adding in an individual holding. And I'm going to think about an investment trust. I'm going to say maybe I've got the JP Morgan let's type that in there. So you can start searching for it. I'm looking for, which one is it? Oh, it's the American Investment Trust, JP Morgan. I'm going to enter the quantity I've got of that. I've got 250 units, so I can see the price and the value. I can check that tallies with what I think I had. Actually, I'm wrong. I had 2,500 units, so add £1,700. If I click Add Holding, that's going to get added into my list. I get a little notification here to say that's been added. It's popped up in my equity holdings, and it's going to add into my asset allocation here as well. Let's look though at a multi-asset fund. So maybe I'm going to pick fund as the type. I'm going to say it's something like an Aviva balanced. So here we go. It's inside Aviva, and I'm going to go for the BNY Mellon multi-asset balance fund. I'm going to add in that holding of that there, click Add Holding. That's going to drop down here, go into my list of multi-asset funds, and it's going to give me a look through of that individual fund. If you know the ISINs for your specific asset as well, you can search by ISIN. That can make it really quick and easy to make sure you get exactly the right share class, because with funds in particular, there can be lots of different share classes that you have. But otherwise, you can just search by name and things will just keep popping up and show you what's there through time. So that's how you add an asset, and they feed into your overall picture. And now let's have a quick look back at the tracking dashboard. So now we've seen how the tracking works. Let's go and think about what that means for planning, because we've got the picture today. What we do here is think about the forward-looking planning from here. For the first time you use it, you'll get a wizard that will take you through the different steps. But in this demonstration account, I've already pre-filled the information, and that's popped through into this projection here, because what we see on day one when we arrive on this dashboard is a forward-looking view for someone in this instance who's 49 today. We see their current annual salary summarized here, their goal, so their primary goal around retirement, of retiring at 60, how much target monthly income they'd like to be there. There's little tooltips everywhere for you to look at. So to note that this is going to be a net of tax income. So the projection forward is going to model it after any tax needs to be paid, and that's going to be a net income. And they want a one-off withdrawal as well. So on this page, firstly, we've got the chart. What can you see from this chart? Well, it's a projection forward looking at a range of outcomes. As you go forward, you hover over any point, you can see there's projected wealth forwards here, factoring in any contributions you're making, factoring in investment returns across the different account types, and it shows you a strong, average, and weak outcome, as well as an uninvested outcome. You also get some key markers. So here we've got a one-off withdrawal that's coming in. They've named that mortgage 10-night close for 175,000, and that is the shift down that's happening here, and it's happening. You'll see at 57. The little number inside the dot is their age, and then that will show you the impact going forwards. We've got some other markers. Perhaps at the moment they retire at 60. We've got a defined benefit pension kicking in, and that's got a mixture of annual income and a lump sum. And we see a dot here at the end which says the projection is depleted, and it's going to be at age 94. So on average, we show where the money would have run out. But you can see in a strong scenario, there still would be funds remaining. So let's look a little bit further at some of the other detail we get on this first page. We see a breakdown of the pensions, the ISAs, and the general investment accounts. These are all pulled from the wealth tracker, or you can manually add them in yourself as well if you want to, if there's others you want to put in there, or if you haven't used the wealth tracker, but you want to use the wealth planner. We give a summary of the outcome, so understanding what the plan says and shows you, and a little summary box here of saying that you might need to pay attention to this and make some adjustments, because we're focused on thinking about, will the funds last for the length of someone's plan? And we focused at age 95, and that's really to be conservative. Average life expectancy for an individual is about 86 in the UK, but when we think about a couple, which is often the case, 95 is an appropriate age to be modelling towards. If you've got any questions about your plan, you can always book in a call with one of our qualified advisors, and this goes straight into their diary. It's going to book in a Zoom call. You can select a time straight from there. I'll give you some hints about things to think about. as well as a guide to understand the key elements to consider when planning. So this is one of those interactive guides I was talking about before that you can go back and look at through time. Let's dive into some of the features of the planner though. So we've seen what the output looks like. Let's think about refining our plan and looking at some of the details. So this is where you get to set your goal, what your current salary is when you plan to retire, and what the level of income you want is. You also get to add in one-off withdrawals here. So you can just select another one, add in the details, and then that will be a one-off withdrawal into the plan. We can look at the breakdown between pensions, where we've got different risk levels. And what does different risk levels mean? So you can actually read more about risk levels in this guide here, but you can select the level of risk that you think is appropriate for the assets that you've got. So in this case, the pensions are allocated at risk level 7, and we've got a description here. It's a 90% plus allocation to globally diversified equities. Because we're projecting forward, we don't need to know the exact holdings here, but we need to have a good sense, because if I change this projection to something that's going to be like risk level 2, which is 20% in equities, if I confirm that change, I can show you in a minute the impact that's going to have on your forward projection. So we need to understand, are you going to be taking risk in equities and expecting better returns, but more variance in your returns? Or are we focusing on a scenario where we're going to have less risk being taken, and therefore you're going to get less return, and that's going to impact the planner. When you pick a risk level in the pension, it does apply to all of your pension accounts, and really that's to do the nuance with the way that crystallization works and so on. So it needs to be the average outcome for your pensions. When we look at the other pension options, we've got defined benefit pensions that can be looked at, and you can add in different pensions. You can state whether you're going to get a lump sum, what the inflation rate will be. You can also factor in your state pension. And the lifetime allowance was here now. The budget recently has suggested that the lifetime allowance is going to be abolished, so it might not be relevant going forwards, but there is an ability to model for it. So some of you who might be concerned about it coming back in might still want to model for that. Inside the investment area, we'll see our ISAs that have come through being tracked, and our general investment accounts as well, that are all going to be there and available to see. If I go back to the projection, we can see what the original projection was. And then I made that change to the pension. So I'm going to rerun now, and we'll see an update that comes through. And really the power of this tool is that you can make iterative changes and updates and see where you're at and what's going on with those different parts through time. And that can be really helpful to understand what the impact might be for these different changes that you make. And what we see here is that the projection shows that actually by taking that less risk in the pension, which is a sort of £370,000 part of the pot, we've got more certainty. There's a narrow range of outcomes, but the money's going to run out. So I might want to go back and re-increase the risk on my pension pot and put that back up towards risk level 7, confirm those changes, go back and rerun my projection. And now I get to see what the outcome of that updated picture is, which is going to flow through and see that coming out here. So rerun it now for the increase of the risk level. And that's going to show us that we might be back closer to being on track through time. Once that's finished running, we'll be able to see the total picture. And you can start to think about any other changes that you might want to take and discuss as well. Now, that's been a whistle-stop tour of the different features to think about. At this moment now, I'm going to start thinking about if there's any in particular questions as well that we can cover. And so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'm just going to quickly have a look at the questions that have come through, because I can see a number of them have. And so it'd be good just to see what we can cover there as well. So let's have a look. So there were some questions about what you do if you make regular monthly investments. So in the planner, if you're making a regular monthly investment, you can actually add a regular contribution, and you go into the individual investment line and then you add in a contribution figure. If you've got if you're inside the wealth tracker, once we've got the linked accounts, that'll flow through automatically. But with the custom accounts, you would just add an increase to the number of units when you come and check in on that in the future through time. There's a question here about adding buy-to-let property and other capital assets. So one of the features that we're looking to add is to be able to have an account that will track your property value or perhaps private equity as well. So you can see a total picture of your wealth. At the moment, it's focused on your investment accounts and liquid assets as well. What other questions have we got? I can see a question here about inflation. So inside the planner, yes, we very much factor in inflation. So we're inflating the withdrawals, so that target net income is inflated through time. And that will factor in the fact that there will be inflation, that you need more money as you retire. So we've made an inflation rate assumption in there that is a long-term inflation rate that is commensurate with the investment returns as well. Because what you don't want to do is just model for high inflation withdrawals and not reflect that on your investment returns through time. But that is all factored in. If you have things like DB pension, so you can also factor in the correct inflation rate you receive on those through time. We've got a question here about retirement planning. So for retirement planning, does your module work out how to use various funds, pensions, ISAs, share accounts tax efficiently? Yes, it definitely does. So inside the projection, it's actually working out how to move funds between the different pots. So what it does is it says, for example, I need to subscribe my ISAs every year if I can, if I've got available general investment accounts. It takes a view on when you're in withdrawal as to whether to withdraw money from your pension and use some of your income bands, or draw money from your general investment account and then maybe your ISAs through time. And it correctly taxes each of those different parts and helps you think about it. One thing you might want to do, though, is speak with an advisor to look at your specific circumstances, because this will still give you a general view and it's a great sense for the direction, but this can always be tweaked and further refined. And that's why we have advisors on hand to either give you guidance or advice about the specifics of your retirement plan. But this can be a really powerful way to start looking at it through time. Another question is just coming about the state pension. Yes, it does take into account the state pension. It assumes if you say you're receiving a state pension that you'll get a full state pension, but you can go into that in the pension section and edit that. So if you've got a reduced state pension or if you've got an enhanced state pension, you can make adjustments to when those are going to kick in and the level of pension that you get as well through time on that. Let's see if we've got any other questions, and do keep those coming in, and we'll see what else we can do. There's a question about just functionality generally and when those linked accounts will be coming in. It's definitely a feature we're working on. It's great to hear that it's something that people want to use. That will be released as soon as possible, and when it is released, we will update you about those linked accounts elements that will factor in joining up to your investment accounts on a more automatic basis as well. And as I say, we'll keep you updated as to when that is in place. I think we've got time for one more question, which was just around defined benefit pensions in the planner. Just asking about how many of those you can add in. You can add as many as you like. You can use it to help you understand the difference between taking a lump sum or the enhanced income. So if you do have a defined benefit pension, you have that choice. You can actually play around with it to see what the impact would be if you took the reduced pension and the increased tax-free lump sum. Or the other way around, and use that to help you make more informed decisions, which is really the purpose of the planner. I think for now that's all we have time for. If you have any more questions, please do either send those through to support@netwealth.com, or if it's more of a technical question about your personal circumstances, please do send them through to advice@netwealth.com, and one of the advisors will be able to get back to you. Thank you very much for joining us today, though. It's been great to have you on this webinar, and I hope it was helpful to give you an insight into how the tools work and how you can get the most out of them. Thank you.